My sister's husband of 7 years admitted that he's been in love with me since before their wedding. He only married her because I was taken. Now my sister is demanding I cut contact with my fiancé, move across the country with her so she can keep an eye on me, claiming I must have led him on all these years. I, 28F, never thought I'd be in this position. My world has been turned upside down in the past 3 weeks, and I'm still trying to process everything that's happened. This is probably going to be long, so I apologize in advance. Some background: my sister Megan, 30F, and I have always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, our parents clearly favored her. She was the athletic, outgoing one, while I was more studious and introverted. Despite this, we managed to maintain a decent relationship throughout our childhood and early adulthood. 7 years ago, Megan married James, 35M. I was her maid of honor, and everything seemed perfect. James was charming, successful, and appeared to make my sister very happy. I was genuinely happy for them, especially since I had just started dating my now fiancé, Tom, 29M. Over the years, I've always made an effort to be close with James. He's my brother-in-law, after all. We share some common interests that my sister doesn't: classic literature, obscure documentaries, that sort of thing. Occasionally, we talk about books we both read or exchange recommendations. Nothing inappropriate, just normal in-law stuff. Tom was always aware of these interactions and never saw any issue with them. Fast forward to 3 weeks ago. Megan and James were hosting a dinner party at their house to celebrate their 7th wedding anniversary. Tom couldn't attend because he was out of town for work. During the party, I noticed James drinking more heavily than usual. As the night went on, he kept finding reasons to talk to me alone, asking for help in the kitchen, wanting my opinion on a painting they'd recently bought, etc. I didn't think much of it at the time. As guests were leaving, James asked if I could stay behind to help clean up. Megan was saying goodbye to the last few guests, so I agreed. While we were alone in the kitchen, James suddenly confessed that he's been in love with me since before his wedding to my sister. He said he only married Megan because I was already in a relationship with Tom, and he thought being close to me as a brother-in-law was better than not being in my life at all. I was completely shocked. I immediately shut the conversation down and told him his comments were inappropriate and disrespectful to both Megan and me. I grabbed my purse and left without saying goodbye to my sister. I was shaking the entire drive home. The next morning, I called Tom, who was still away, and told him everything. He was understandably upset but said we'd figure it out together when he got back. I spent the next day agonizing over whether to tell Megan. On one hand, she deserved to know the truth about her husband. On the other hand, I was afraid of how she would react. I decided to tell her. I asked her to meet me for coffee, and as gently as I could, I explained what James had said to me. I expected her to be angry at James, but instead, she immediately turned on me. She accused me of flirting with her husband for years and leading him on. She said I must have done something to make him feel that way, that men don't just develop feelings for their wives' sisters out of nowhere. I was stunned. I tried to explain that I had never encouraged James in any way and had always respected their marriage. But Megan wouldn't listen. She stormed out of the coffee shop, and I didn't hear from her for several days. When she finally called me, things got even more bizarre. She said she and James had talked things through and decided to work on their marriage. But there was a condition: I needed to cut contact with Tom and move across the country with her and James. According to her, the only way their marriage could heal was if she could keep an eye on me and make sure I wasn't tempting her husband. I thought she was joking at first, but she was dead serious. When I refused, she became hysterical, saying I was choosing my relationship over her marriage and that this proved I had feelings for James. She even threatened to tell our parents and extended family that I had been trying to steal her husband for years if I didn't agree to her demands. Tom came back a few days later, and we've been trying to figure out how to handle this situation. He's been incredibly supportive, but this whole mess has cast a shadow over our engagement. We're supposed to be planning our wedding, but instead, we're dealing with this drama. Yesterday, Megan showed up at our apartment unannounced. She was much calmer than before and apologized for her behavior. I was relieved, thinking we could finally talk things through rationally. But then she revealed the real reason for her visit. She wanted to formally invite me to move in with them, saying she and James had bought a larger house with a separate guest suite for me. She said they were willing to share their lives with me in whatever capacity made everyone happy. The implication was clear, and I was disgusted. I asked her to leave immediately. She became angry again, calling me selfish and accusing me of ruining her life. She said James had admitted he might leave her if I didn't agree to their arrangement. I'm at a complete loss. I've tried reaching out to our parents, but they've always favored Megan and are taking her side, saying I should make sacrifices to help save my sister's marriage. Some of our mutual friends have also been distant, apparently having heard Megan's version of events. Tom thinks we should just cut contact with my sister and James entirely, at least for now. Part of me agrees, But they're still my family, and despite everything, I worry about Megan. What if James really does leave her? Will she blame me forever? I feel like I'm losing my mind. Am I wrong for refusing their bizarre request? Should I be doing more to help my sister, or is this beyond what I should reasonably be expected to do? Has anyone ever dealt with something even remotely similar to this? Update 1. First of all, thank you to everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and advice have meant more to me than I can express. The past week has been chaotic, but I wanted to provide an update on what's happened since. The day after I posted, Megan began blowing up my phone with texts and calls. I initially ignored them, following the advice many of you gave about establishing boundaries. But then she sent a message that chilled me to the bone. If you won't help save my marriage, I'll make sure everyone knows exactly what kind of sister you really are. I showed the message to Tom, and we decided it was time to take more decisive action. We contacted a lawyer who specializes in harassment cases. She advised us to document everything and helped us draft a cease and desist letter to both Megan and James. We didn't want to take legal action against my own sister, but the situation was escalating, and we needed to protect ourselves. The letter seemed to work, temporarily. Megan stopped contacting me directly, but then she took things to another level. She created a private social media group with our extended family members and some mutual friends, where she shared her twisted version of events. According to several cousins who reached out to me, she claimed I had been having an emotional affair with James for years and was now trying to play the victim to cover my tracks. What's worse, she somehow obtained old text messages between James and me, completely innocent conversations about books and movies, and presented them out of context as evidence of my inappropriate relationship with her husband. Of course, she conveniently left out all of her responses in these group chats where she was completely fine with our interactions. Our parents called me, absolutely livid. They didn't even let me explain my side before launching into a tirade about how I've always been jealous of Megan and how I should be ashamed of myself. My mom actually suggested that I should just agree to Megan's request and move with them, saying it would be a fresh start for everyone. I hung up on them. Tom has been my rock through all of this. He suggested we invite some of our closest friends over to explain the situation before Megan could get to them too. We did, and thankfully, they believed us. A couple of them even mentioned that they had always felt James looked at me strangely at gatherings but had dismissed it as nothing. The most surprising development came from my Aunt Sarah, my mom's sister. She called me privately to say she didn't believe Megan's story for a second. Apparently, James had made similar inappropriate comments to my 25-year-old cousin Julia at a family gathering last Christmas, which Julia had confided to Sarah but was too uncomfortable to make public. Sarah urged Julia to tell me about it, and she did, providing screenshots of creepy messages James had sent her afterward. Armed with this new information, I decided to contact James directly, against Tom's advice, I admit. I told him I knew about his behavior with Julia and that if he and Megan didn't stop spreading lies about me, I would make sure everyone knew about that incident as well. Within hours, Megan called me, sobbing hysterically. But it wasn't the reaction I expected. Instead of apologizing, she accused me of conspiring with Julia to make James look bad. She said I was trying to destroy her marriage because I couldn't have James for myself. The conversation devolved from there, with her making increasingly unhinged accusations. She eventually hung up after saying, "You're dead to me. I hope you're happy now." Tom and I decided we needed space from the entire situation. We booked an Airbnb in a neighboring city for a long weekend just to clear our heads. While we were there, we made a difficult decision. We're moving up our wedding date and keeping it small, with only our closest friends. No family. It breaks my heart, but I can't imagine having my wedding day tainted by this drama. When we returned from our weekend away, I found a letter in our mailbox. It was from James, handwritten on expensive stationery. I was tempted to throw it away unread, but curiosity got the better of me. The contents were disturbing, to say the least. He wrote that he was sorry for the discomfort he had caused but still maintained that we had a special connection that couldn't be denied. He said Megan was overreacting and that once she calmed down, the three of us could work out an arrangement that would make everyone happy. He ended the letter by saying he would wait for me no matter how long it took. I showed the letter to Tom, and we immediately added it to our documentation file. Tom wanted to confront James personally, but I convinced him that maintaining distance was the better approach. Yesterday, I received an email from my mother saying that Megan has checked herself into a mental health facility following a breakdown. She blamed me entirely, saying the stress of my betrayal had pushed Megan over the edge. I don't know whether to believe this or if it's just another manipulation tactic. I feel terrible about Megan's situation, regardless of how she's treated me. She's still my sister, and I never wanted any of this to happen. At the same time, I can't help but feel angry that I'm somehow being cast as the villain in a scenario where I was just an unwilling recipient of my brother-in-law's inappropriate feelings. Tom and I are discussing the possibility of moving away after our wedding. We both have jobs that would allow us to work remotely, and the idea of a fresh start somewhere far from this drama is becoming more appealing by the day. I'll update again if there are significant developments, but for now, we're focusing on our mental health and our future together. Thank you again for all your support. Update 2. It's been about a month since my last update, and a lot has happened. I want to start by thanking everyone for their continued support and advice. It's been invaluable during this difficult time. First, regarding Megan's stay at the mental health facility, it was real, but shorter than our mother had implied. She checked herself out after 3 days, against the recommendation of her doctors. I learned this from my Aunt Sarah, who has become an unexpected ally in this whole mess. According to her, Megan refused to participate in therapy sessions and became agitated whenever the therapists tried to discuss her relationship with James or her feelings about me. About 2 weeks ago, I received a formal letter from a divorce attorney representing Megan. It stated that she was filing for divorce from James on grounds of emotional infidelity and listed me as a contributing factor. The letter requested that I make myself available for a deposition as part of her divorce proceedings. I immediately contacted our lawyer, who assured me that this was likely just another intimidation tactic and advised me not to respond directly. Sure enough, 3 days later, Megan called me in tears, saying she didn't really want a divorce and had only contacted the lawyer to scare James into being more committed to their marriage. She then pivoted to blaming me again, saying none of this would have happened if I had just agreed to her reasonable request to move with them. I remained calm and told her I would only communicate through our respective lawyers from now on. This sent her into another rage, and she hung up on me again. The most shocking development came last week. Julia, my cousin, forwarded me a series of direct messages she had received from James. In them, he claimed that he had special connections with both Julia and me, and suggested that his feelings weren't limited to just one of Megan's family members. He described himself as being trapped in a loveless marriage and implied that he was drawn to our family's women. It was creepy and disturbing, to say the least. Julia has since blocked him and is considering filing for a restraining order. With Julia's permission, I shared these messages with Aunt Sarah, who then took it upon herself to inform my parents. Finally, they seemed to be seeing the situation more clearly. My father called me to apologize for not believing me initially. He admitted that he and my mother had always found it easier to take Megan's side because she makes more of a fuss, which was a painful confirmation of what I felt my entire life. My mother hasn't reached out directly yet, but my father says she feels awful about how she treated me. As for James, he apparently showed up drunk at my parents' house 2 nights ago, demanding to know why they were turning against him. My father had to threaten to call the police before he would leave. After this incident, my parents have finally acknowledged that James is the problem here, not me. Megan, however, is still fluctuating between blaming James and blaming me. She's now staying with our parents temporarily and, according to my father, oscillates between defending James, he was manipulated by my sister, and vilifying him, he's a monster who played us all. She still refuses to accept any professional help. In the midst of all this chaos, Tom and I have made some decisions about our future. We've accelerated our plans to move and have secured jobs and an apartment in a city about 500 miles away. We're getting married next month in a small ceremony with just a handful of close friends. My Aunt Sarah and Julia will be the only family members attending, which is bittersweet but necessary for our peace of mind. I've also started therapy to deal with the emotional aftermath of this situation. It's been helpful to have a professional perspective and a safe space to process my feelings of guilt, anger, and sadness. One unexpected positive outcome: Tom and I have grown even closer through this ordeal. Seeing how steadfastly he's supported me and how he's never once doubted or blamed me has reinforced my certainty that he's the right person for me. I still have moments of profound sadness about the likely permanent damage to my relationship with Megan and the strain with my parents. But I'm trying to focus on building a healthy future with Tom rather than dwelling on a painful past I can't change. Thank you all again for your support. I'll update again after we've moved and gotten married, hopefully with news that the situation has calmed down somewhat. Update 3, final. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I thought it was time to share how things have settled. Tom and I are now married and happily living in our new city. The wedding was small but perfect, just us and 8 of our closest friends, plus Aunt Sarah and Julia. It was nothing like the big wedding I had sometimes imagined, but in many ways, it was better, intimate, meaningful, and drama-free. As for my family situation, things have evolved in ways I never expected. The biggest surprise came about 2 months ago when James was arrested. Not for anything related to our situation, but for financial fraud at his company. Apparently, he had been embezzling funds for years to maintain his lavish lifestyle. This revelation sent shockwaves through the family and completely shifted the dynamic. Megan finally had to confront the reality that James was not who she thought he was. According to my Aunt Sarah, the arrest was a wake-up call for Megan. She filed for divorce immediately and has since started genuine therapy. She's still not ready to speak to me directly, but she did send a brief email apologizing for some of her behavior, though she maintained that I could have handled things better. It's not the full acknowledgement I might have hoped for, but it's a start. My parents have been on a similar journey of realization. My father called me a couple of months ago and gave me a proper apology, acknowledging their favoritism throughout our childhood and their failure to support me during this crisis. He explained, though didn't excuse, that they had always given in to Megan because her reactions were more explosive and it was easier to placate her than deal with the fallout. Hearing him admit this pattern was both validating and painful. My mother took longer to come around. She finally called me last month, and our conversation was strained but civil. She admitted that she had always put more pressure on me because I was the responsible one and expected me to be the bigger person in conflicts with Megan. We've agreed to try to rebuild our relationship slowly, starting with occasional phone calls. The most surprising development involves Julia. After James's arrest, she decided to come forward about his inappropriate behavior toward her. This led 2 other women in our extended family to reveal similar experiences. It turns out James had a pattern of targeting women in Megan's family, making his claim of being specifically in love with me even more obviously false. This information has helped Megan see that she wasn't simply losing out to me and her husband's affections, she was married to a predator who used their relationship to access other women. As for Tom and I, we're thriving in our new environment. The distance from my family drama has been healing, and we've built a wonderful community of friends here. We're even talking about starting a family of our own soon, which is both exciting and a little scary. I've continued with therapy, working through the complex emotions this situation has stirred up. It's helped me recognize that while I'm not responsible for what happened, there are patterns in my family dynamic that I don't want to repeat. I've learned to set firmer boundaries and to value my own well-being rather than constantly sacrificing for others' comfort. There's still a long road ahead for my relationship with Megan and my parents. I don't know if we'll ever be truly close again, and I'm learning to be okay with that possibility. Family relationships should be nurturing and supportive, not sources of manipulation and pain. For now, I'm focusing on my marriage, my career, and building a life that isn't defined by the trauma of the past year. I'm grateful for the unexpected allies I found in Aunt Sarah and Julia, and for all of you who offered support and wisdom when I needed it most. If there's anything I've learned from this experience, it's that sometimes the family you choose is more important than the family you're born into. I'm lucky to have chosen well with Tom, and to have found the strength to prioritize my own happiness even when it meant going against a lifetime of family conditioning. Thank you all for being part of my journey. I probably won't update again unless something major changes, but please know that your support helped me navigate one of the most difficult periods of my life, and I'll always be grateful for that.